And that is picked off. How dangerous. What's on the return? Comes to the outside. And he's taken down with 2 seconds remaining.
This is the Coach's Smoke Barbecue Baylor pregame show on Sikkim 365 Radio.
Offset with Smith in the backfield on 2nd and goal. And instead, they come around with the tight end. Ben Sims takes it in.
The Baylor pregame show is also presented by the Nitchie Group.
And now the short pitch to Smith, and Smith spins out of it. And Smith inside the 15, looking for the corner, and gets it. Touchdown, Bears. Keandre Coburn whipped at the line of scrimmage, and Smith sped off for 32 yards and a score.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. It's Paul and Craig. Craig's out today. Paul Catalina, David Smoke, Armstrong Sims runs the mothership. We will update you if you're already in tune with some of those top 25 games. Kansas State is already burying Kansas. Late in the second quarter, that's about to go to halftime at 21-3. Skylar Thompson has 165 yards passing, a touchdown. Deuce Vaughn, 69 yards rushing, and a touchdown as well. And we're here because Baylor and TCU in Fort Worth just after 2:30, and what a week it's been up in Fort Worth with Gary Patterson out. They want to move in a different direction. Wanted him to have a chance if he wanted to continue the season, said no, but then came back after a couple of days and started helping TCU during practices. We predict the games, and I think across the board, most everybody predicting Baylor to win this game. Some saying it shouldn't be close, and I agree it shouldn't be. But TCU's beaten Baylor, 8 of the last 10 times? We know about 61-58. We know about 4 overtimes. It's not like Baylor goes and drills TCU along the way. And one was a tip pass in the end zone intercepted by, I think, Terrell Burt a few years back.
Yeah, the other thing is in Fort Worth is kind of a phantom zone for Baylor. They've not played well in that stadium, although I don't imagine a gigantic home field advantage today because the attendance has been bad. I don't imagine firing a coach is going to make it any better at TCU right now for the rest of this season. So as you look down the line, Gary Patterson didn't get fired or in the middle of the season because he has one last ride in him, in Jeremiah Donati's opinion. There's a lot more problems that go deeper than Gary Patterson. It's the roster's not great. They have a ton of injuries. What do we know about Zach Evans right now?
Probably, you would think not playing. It sounds that way. And, of course, Max Duggan appears to be out with Chandler Moore starting at quarterback, the young man whose dad's the head coach at Allen High School.
Yeah, you start adding all that stuff together, and it turns out to be, you shouldn't feel great about what's going on at TCU. For TCU right now, and Baylor is on a roll. Although all those things that we said about TCU, given that Baylor just beat a big rival last week and came back and did it and thumped them really good in the second half physically. I mean, I know that wasn't a blowout, but the way that Baylor played that from the early part of the third quarter on after they gave up a touchdown was a physically dominating performance, which they've done week after week after week in the second half. But, you're human, and there are trap games, and this one has all the ingredients of it. But I do think the best formula against a trap game is a coach who has no reaction to anything good or bad. It's always,
There's no roller coaster. Yeah. It's just,
it's this happened. What's the next thing? You scored, score again. You didn't score this time. You fumbled, get a stop. I mean, Dave Aranda's philosophy is there is no football disease during a game that there's not medicine for.
Well, unless there's a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, but I mean, but again, if like
even then you just keep playing.
Just keep playing, and again,
and this is all about what they did in the second half against Texas, because it was 14-10 at halftime, 21-10, and there's times you get out of whack. You could kind of maybe start to panic or hyperventilate or just like maybe they just kept going to doing what they're doing. And I still think one of the stories last week that to me was huge is how Gary Bohannon threw two bad picks, and the defense picked him up a couple of different times. Not that Texas didn't take advantage of one of them, but that he kept firing away too. Mm-hmm. They didn't just like bring him into a vacuum, which they've done a little bit early. They let him start throwing the ball around a little bit.
Yeah, they did. And
you know that Texas was in Baylor territory last week 9 times?
Yeah.
Now, I know that over a course of a game, but 9 times, and they scored what?
24 points.
24 points.
Yeah.
So that's a great job by the defense, and so they still won the game.
But that's part and parcel of the, all right, look, maybe you're, when I say the football disease, maybe you're up against it. Maybe you're sitting there on the ventilator. But as long as you're breathing, you're still alive. And I think that's how Baylor's kind of reacted to things. And you notice, last week, Gary Bohannon threw a really bad interception late in the first half. Really bad interception. Texas is fired up. Did you see Baylor no. Oh, man? No, it wasn't.
Drop
Here we
your
go
head,
again.
Give up a field. No.
It was the defense goes out and gets an interception of their own. There's an answer. It might be harder. Yeah, they've got great field position. It's harder, but it's not impossible.
So what did they do? They turned around and got it back and did not give up anything. Here's again, 21-3 Kansas State. You can see the scores at the bottom. Great stuff. Love it. There's Georgia leads at halftime. They scored late in the half to lead Missouri 26-3. Mississippi rolling past Liberty 24-0. Auburn and A&M played this afternoon, same time as TCU and Baylor. Mississippi State, Arkansas play at 3. A couple of the other games in the top 25 currently going on. Ohio State has the ball late in the second quarter, 17-10. They lead Nebraska, and they're not dominating that game. In fact, they've let Nebraska kind of hang around, and it was 17-3. Then Martinez threw a touchdown pass that got him pretty good shape and cut it to 7. Georgia 26-3. Wake Forest and North Carolina. I thought this would be very entertaining. It is a shootout. Wake Forest's offense is really unbelievable. 24-21, Wake Forest leads with 4 minutes to go in the first half.
This is the first time in the top 10 in their history, and they played the ACC title game under Jim Grobe. They were just never in the top 10 at that point. Jim Grobe would have loved to see an offense like this. He never had one like this, and he's the greatest coach in Wake Forest history. But yeah, Dave Clawson's making a name for himself, and this offense that no one else really runs, this inverted wishbone spread option RPO kind of thing they got going on there.
24-0 Ole Miss at halftime. Minnesota down 14-0 at halftime to Illinois. Of course, P.J. Fleck had that extension. Pittsburgh 24-19. That game late second quarter over Duke. 25th ranked Pittsburgh. These are the college football rankings numbers. Kenny Pickett has 256 yards passing and a couple of scores at halftime. Then there's many games, of course, going on tonight. In the Big 12 later on today, you have Baylor TCU at 2:30, Oklahoma State that same time. Number 11 in the college football poll. Baylor number 12, Oklahoma State at West Virginia, who stunned Iowa State last week, and then Texas and Iowa State. How about that game? How about the game at 6:30 tonight? Two teams that are reeling. Iowa State appeared to get back in it with their win against Oklahoma State, and then they turn around and lose in Morgantown, lose against West Virginia, and now West Virginia back in Morgantown against Oklahoma State. Texas and Iowa State, it's a battle of two teams with high expectations. Iowa State for a reason, Texas because, well, it always is that way, and both of them desperately need a win. They desperately need a win.
Yeah, they both really need a win, and I'm going to give Iowa State, it's hard to envision a team that has talent like Texas does, although not depth, but talent, losing 4 games in a row. But that's kind of how the schedule fell for them. This might be the first time in Longhorn history that the 4 best teams you're going to face all year are right in a row. And Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Iowa State, I mean, that's a murderer's row as far as the Big 12 goes. And I think that, Texas drops to 4-5 today. I think they get it right and get to a bowl game down the stretch, and they might win 3 in a row down the stretch. I just don't think they win in Ames today. I think Iowa State at home, there's a little bit that's what gets them over the hump, although it's going to be a close game.
All right, here are some of you on the chat room that's fired up. We're going to hear our first interview today will be former Baylor quarterback and also Baylor color analyst on Baylor Radio, J.J. Joe. Emiliano, Houston Cougar fan here, hoping Baylor wins out, beats Oklahoma in the conference championship. They have to beat TCU, Oklahoma. I know you know that too. They have Kansas State and Texas Tech still to come. Paula, we're in Fort Worth, ready to cheer the Bears to victory. From Robert Duncan, Wake and North Carolina, very entertaining. You're exactly right. From the Prodigal Heel, Baylor 38-31, they beat TCU. Robert says they haven't given up Baylor 30 points all year in a game. The Prodigal Heel, TC is a solid organization, but since I suspect Baylor and Oklahoma State will be in the title game, I'll stick with Baylor. From Brian Etheridge, one of our bosses, it's great, lovely hearing you in the mountains. I wonder which mountain
range.
He's in New Mexico. New Mexico, okay. Also, Robert Duncan, Wake Forest, not an ACC game? Huh?
What?
Wake Forest in North Carolina is an ACC game. Not sure exactly what that's going on.
I don't know if I said Wake Forest was in the ACC title game a few years ago.
Okay.
It's been 10 years, but yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Prodigal Heel saying this, by the way. David Smoke acclimated to YouTube pretty well. I kind of think I'm getting better.
You are.
At that.
I think
the TV part, I was in TV for a long time. I did sports on TV for a long, long time. That has been simple for me. The part is getting to know all the ways we can communicate with you and trying to stay in touch with that as well.
Prodigal Hill also says he thinks the Longhorns will miss a bowl.
Wow, that would be interesting. If they don't win today, then you have to win 2 of your last 3 or whatever it might be. Also, from Kyler Kelsey, how about the Nebraska game, 17-10? Nebraska's playing okay. They're still not a very smart football team. Had kind of a 3-0 game and then a 13-yard punt. We've seen that throughout the year, but thank you. It's 17-10 Ohio State at halftime. And I think they'll blow it open eventually because they just have so many weapons. Although Garrett Wilson's not playing today, the young man from Lake Travis High School is not playing today, they'll eventually blow this probably open. But if they don't, here's how Gary Barta will handle this when they come out of the college football ratings on Tuesday. Well, they were playing against the teams whose back's against the wall with a coach on the hot seat. Like so it doesn't matter if it's 44-28 or that wouldn't be bad. But from our web, North Carolina Wake Forest is an out-of-conference game because they are in different divisions and would not play in conference, so they went out of conference to continue their series.
That seems like a lot of work for very little payoff.
Yeah, that's actually correct. They only play because the ACC. They only play other teams in the division every 6 years. But Wake Forest and North Carolina is a big rival, so they wanted to play each other more often. So they used up a non-conference game slot to schedule each other.
I wish that the Big 12, I wish Nebraska and Oklahoma, they could have. I wonder if they were smart enough to think that way. That even if we can't play you in certain years because of the way things flip, we want to continue the series and play you as a non-conference game. I had no idea. Our web, thank you. And same thing with the question earlier about Wake Forest and North Carolina being a conference game. I did not know that. Did you know that? I didn't.
No, I had no idea.
You.
That's good.
Does
on
not
them.
count. Does not count in the ACC standings.
Here's why it wouldn't have happened with Nebraska and Oklahoma. Texas very intentionally made those kind of moves so that Oklahoma was their rival and not Nebraska's anymore, and successfully killed it.
Well, it made sense based on North and South.
But it didn't make sense in what the Big 12 didn't understand, and Dan Beebe didn't understand at the beginning of the Big 12 that the SEC understood was that television, now that more games are on television, you have to do better. And now Texas and Oklahoma clearly get this because they're going there. But this game is more about television than it is about tradition.
Right.
And you have to make good television shows. So because Nebraska and Oklahoma is a better television show, you should have made the rules do that than Nebraska versus Kansas, or Nebraska versus A&M. While A&M was really good.
Let me tell you this, Paul. You're exactly right. Had Texas had a team in the North that was a rival, I mean, one that they had played a long time. And their rivals have been Oklahoma and A&M, and we know that forever. And then, of course, whoever else was a part of the old Southwest Conference. Had one of those teams been in the North, they would have found a way to do a crossover game. You know that. I know that. And why Nebraska and Oklahoma didn't make that happen, that was just and it would have helped Nebraska, even if they started having slippage like they've had now for the last several years. All right, your thoughts and comments on the game today, but not just Baylor and TCU. Some of you earlier this week and yesterday a couple chat about what we do. I want to give you our story for those who are joining us either for the first time or kind of picked this up in the last couple of weeks. In April of 2020, Sikkim365.com had a website that had been run for about 4 years. Brian Etheridge, Ashley Hodge, and Colt Barber. We had a change in our professional landscape with COVID, and all of us worked at a radio station, Craig, Paul, and me. And so things changed. They reached out to us basically almost immediately once the news came down that we were no longer there. And we started a show on April the 6th in Paul's second story of his mansion. And so we started doing the show at his desk and on cardboard tables. And we got it done. It was amazingly set up. Paul found a way to get it done. And we were there from April until early September. And that's when we moved into where we are now, the studio that you see behind us. And we got cameras everywhere. It's insane. And Armstrong Sims started working for us as a producer and, of course, director of basically operations here. And so that's where we were. And, yes, we covered the living hell out of Baylor and the Big 12 and high school football and the Cowboys and anything else. And then once the Texas and Oklahoma story popped in late July, we found you and you found us with coverage of realignment or whatever was going on. And, man, we're so happy. So sometimes we just take that for granted. Kind of you're on board. Had a couple of you ask, hey, how did this all start? And we appreciate it because we have met and gotten to know so many of you. And at times, thousands of you who have subscribed now to YouTube and Channel 365 Sports. And if you want to like us now, and then also if you want to subscribe, if you haven't already, and spread the word, we would appreciate that very much.
By the way, got a couple of people watching on Facebook today. Marshall Burns, one of them, and says that he responded to the Longhorns will miss a bowl, and he says, Texas might miss a bowl, but I'm willing to bet that Ricky Williams won't.
Hey, it's legal in Ricky Williams' estate.
Yeah.
Wherever he is hey, you know what? He is a hell of a. But was he so good as a running back?
But we got to tell the story about the interview we did at Ricky Williams with the Texas Sports Hall of Fame. So when he went to the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, when we did the show over there, it used to be on a weeknight, so we would do the show. Our show over there, 3-hour show, it was me and Smokey and the late great Butch Henry were doing the show, and they would give us a list of here's who the people you're getting, and you're going to get. We had Nastia Lukin that day, and then it was after Nastia Lukin, it was Ricky Williams. And so Nastia gets done. We get up. We take a picture with Nastia. And I said, okay, I'm going to go find Ricky. I just saw the guy who's running him, and I'm going to go get Ricky. And so I see the guy who's running Ricky, and he's like, I don't know where he is. I have no idea. He's gone. There's a lot of people kind of crammed into that room, and
I don't think that's his style.
Yeah, Ricky. What we know is he's not big on huge crowd, like being in them and not playing football. I mean, he has that kind of deal. So he just needed a minute to go outside, and so 45 minutes go by. We do other interviews, and we're thinking, Ricky, it's not going to happen. So I finally say, okay, hey, I'm just going to go make one last push and go get Ricky Williams. I walk out of the room, and here's Ricky Williams, and the guy's got him. He goes, hey, Ricky, this is Paul. And Ricky's like, hey, man, great to meet you.
Yeah,
and he's
happy.
Sucking a lollipop. And so he does this fantastic, really funny, really laid-back interview with us. We get done. I start talking. We're walking out, and the handler goes, hey, I don't know, but I don't know what happened, but he came back sucking this lollipop, and he's got one if he wanted. I was like, no, I gotta go out there with my parents.
Every once in a while, you'll disappear from the press box and come back sucking on a lollipop. All right, 31-20 now, 31-21 Wake Forest, late second quarter, leading North Carolina. You talk about a disappointing year. We can discuss Texas or Iowa State. How about North Carolina? They were a top 10 team. Mac Brown and reloaded with a lot of people as quarterback and Howell coming back, and they're 4-4. They lose today. They're on the bubble when it comes to getting them into a bowl game. Even in the ACC, which has, of course, struggled quite a bit. So in Texas, the high school football season, and there's a handful of games, but for the most part ended last night as far as the regular season. Playoffs start next week. 6 weeks of a battering ram. You have to win 6 times to win a state championship. It's the 11th week that just wrapped up, and now you start what is the bye district, and everybody plays. There are no off weeks, no byes. You start playing, and so that's something that starts next week in the state of Texas, and we'll have some coverage of that along the way as well. We watched a young man, and I want to bring this up because we didn't get a chance. You guys went around. Paul, Craig, and I, we did the game Thursday night. Midway played up in Mansfield against Lake Ridge. Shootout, 63-56, not an overtime game. There's a young man named Sam Battle. I want to bring him up. He's a senior quarterback at Midway. He was going to be their starter. At the last second, they changed their mind and went with a junior who at times had some pretty decent games early in the year. And then they were down 18-0. They had not won a game. They were down 18-0 to Waco High. And Waco High went 0-10 this year. 18-0 at halftime. They brought in Sam Battle. He ends up firing them up. They end up going down and scoring. The defense, then they get the ball back. And they end up winning 27-18. On Thursday night, you don't know this, he throws for 434 yards. That's second most ever in that school's history, behind a guy named Ben Hicks, who played at SMU. And 5 touchdowns, third most in school history, behind a guy named Tanner Mordecai, who had 7 in one game, 6 in another, and a lot of others who had 5. He's now, of course, a Heisman candidate playing at SMU. His attempts in a game, 47, was third all-time, or is third all-time, behind a guy named Tanner Mordecai. And this is Sam Battle. He's not going to play anything in college. But you didn't know that. I did because I have the website, did that research. They have a sophomore receiver who had the most catches ever in a game, a single game. Remember C.J. Williams?
Yeah.
He had 14. I know for a lot of you who are watching football, Wake Forest, I just wanted to bring that up. It's pretty cool. They won a 9. It was an awful year, but they had a couple of things happen in that game.
Well, look, for both those teams, they're both not going to the playoffs. It was a really fun game to watch because they were not. They're not going anywhere, and they both said we're going to grip it and rip it, and just going to have a good old time tonight. And that's what the game was. It was a fun one to watch because we hadn't get to watch many fun ones this year, and. Sam Battle, that's his last time he's going to put on a helmet and shoulder pads. And outside of not getting the win, it was worth every second of that game. And congratulations to him and what he did and that team for fighting really hard in that last night.
The prodigal heel, again, a $5 super chat. As Paul, you mentioned, the Longhorns will miss a bowl, I think. Maybe. In Iowa State today. Let's see here. From... Robert Duncan, we promoted you on the West Virginia 24/7 site. Barely here, 2,000 posts there. I'm not barely here. I'm not sure.
I think that's just another username.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Someone said Ricky Williams, who played at Texas, or Ricky Williams, who played at Texas Tech, who was a pretty good running back too, but a thinner, angular version. No, we know which one it is. It's either Christian Richard or Christian Richard. We want North Carolina, Texas in a bowl game. Mac Brown against his former team. That's if either one gets to a bowl game. James H. Paul, hey guys, how about Grinch, Oklahoma's defensive coordinator? What about he being the head coach at Texas Tech?
I think he'd probably maybe be more up for Washington State, but I mean I wouldn't shy away from hiring Alex Grinch. They've been up and down over there in Oklahoma. I don't think that has anything to do with Alex Grinch. I think that he's made them a lot better than they were on defense. So he might be. I'm not sure who the candidates are at Texas Tech anymore. Realistically,
Joey McGuire is absolutely in the mix. It just depends on how big is the mix.
Yeah, but I don't know what is Sonny Dykes really this. And for Sonny Dykes, he went to Texas Tech. His dad is a legend at Texas Tech. Do you really want that job when most of the time, I mean, you go around the country, who are the best coaches in college football? Now, Kirby Smart you're going to be able, he went to Georgia and Georgia's winning right now, and that's great. But for the most part, Mark Richt didn't win at Miami. Miami was his alma mater. I mean, he was okay, but he didn't win the national title. Nick Saban's not an Alabama grad. Bear Bryant, I don't think he was an Alabama grad either, was he? Maybe.
I don't know about Bryant.
But, Bobby Bowden didn't go to Florida State. Steve Spurrier went to Florida, and that worked out for them. Urban Meyer didn't go to any of the schools that he coached at. That was very successful. Florida or Ohio State.
Osborne was a Nebraska grad. He was. Bear Bryant went to school at Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in Alabama.
Okay, so.
A couple more chats. This is from Robert Dunko. Someone asked about Sarkisian, if in fact they miss a bowl game. Is he on the hot seat? When you take the job at Texas, you're immediately it's kind of a fanfare parade. They will promote the hell out of you because we understand they're looking for that next person. But then lose a game. And then lose 4.
Yeah.
And then possibly go 4-5. No, he's fine. They surely can't do that no matter how much money they print and tell you how much money they have. No, he's fine. He's got at least a year. And then if they slop it up again next year, then who knows what might happen.
Bo Stacker says Patterson to Texas Tech maybe, and then
he's the best coach out there right now, don't you think, without a job?
Not anymore. I think his record proves itself. I think he's flung himself into mediocrity. I think he is, and I'll say this, and I've said it many times on the air, he is a next-level defensive football genius. But he's also a next-level get-out-of-my-yard crazy man.
No,
and those
times,
two things
you're right.
cannot exist. The reason that Gary Patterson was at TCU for 21 years and he did not go anywhere else was not just because he was happy at TCU. That's only part of it. Because he interviewed at Nebraska, he interviewed at Tennessee, he didn't get interviews other places. He did not get those jobs because the difference between him and a guy who has the same kind of genius, a Nick Saban or a Bill Belichick, is that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick don't give two hunky dumps what everybody else says about them, and Gary Patterson does. That's the difference. That's why at Texas Tech, I'm not getting into that business. I want a younger coach because I want to make a hire at Texas Tech that could be a 10 to 15-year hire. Maybe most coaches aren't anymore, but I want that potential, and that's not there with Gary Patterson.
Yeah, you wonder how much and how long Mike Leach would have stayed at Texas Tech had it not been for the incident with Craig James's son and all the stuff that happened there. Sometimes you have what you have. It would have been interesting because of how good they were going and the success they were having and about to have had it not been what happened to Art Briles and the scandal and how that went down. He might have been here for a while, although people were always wanting to have a chance, and then, of course, now nobody does. And I've said this before for a lot of people that bring him up, but it's not bringing it up to get more comments and tweets and whatever else. I see this now. If Texas Tech doesn't open, or if it's not Texas Tech who goes back, he's an alum, it's kind of out where you're not going to get, you're not going to have the big limelight of the media. And with all due respect, they've got really good media people in Lubbock. If it's not a Texas Tech when it opens, or if, in fact, a Texas State opens later in the year, if Spavital is gone, then you just wonder. I mean, you eventually really wonder if Liberty ever has a coaching change where they are. Moving into now what is it, the Conference USA. Is that right? Into the Conference USA after yesterday's decision. 28-3, Kansas State scored early in the third to lead Kansas 28-3. Go to the calls.
Let's take one call, and then we'll go to we have an interview with JJ Joe coming up in the next segment. Steven in Virginia, you're on the Bet US caller line. Thanks for your call.
Hey, guys. I'm really excited for this game this week. This 3 weeks of Baylor football with Texas, TCU, and Oklahoma. Every year, those are the three most important games, Texas and TCU being our biggest rivals. I don't see this being a letdown game because I always feel like Paul said, Dave Aranda is a really steady hand. I feel like everyone comes out into this game knowing we want to beat TCU because they're our rival and we're not down because we beat another rival last week. I wanted to ask y'all a couple of questions about these coaching searches while we were on this topic. The first is, two Texas A&M centered questions. Does that job become open because Jimbo goes to LSU? And is Mike Elko a realistic candidate at TCU or Texas Tech? And then my Tech question, does Tech go after Hugh Freeze to open up the Liberty job for Art Briles to still do him a solid on the way out the door? I don't think Coach Briles is getting any younger. And if this Liberty job doesn't come open soon, I don't see when he can get it. So later, guys.
Why? Okay, first of all, Texas Tech doesn't need to do Art Briles any favor. There's nothing for them
by hiring Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, it doesn't. That's no benefit to them. What do they care happens anywhere else? And if Texas Tech cares what happens anywhere else, then Kirby Hocutt's not focused on what he does. He has got to care about what happens at Texas Tech. Secondly, Jimbo Fisher's not going to LSU. I mean, I don't think so. I think that is it really a better job than the one he has right now? I could argue it's a better job than the one he had before at Florida State because it's in the SEC. They have better donors. There's a little bit more money flowing through there. They have the facilities now that he was wanting at Florida State. But it's the same job maybe at A&M. I mean, I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but it might be a little bit better in the history.
LSU has had their last 3 coaches win a national title.
Yeah.
So in that particular part of it, it's a better job. They both have massive stadiums.
Yeah.
They both have unbelievable fan bases. They're both in the SEC, but that's the only difference. Now, whether A&M can ever get through that after the last one was in the 1930s or whatever, I don't know. That's what Jimbo Fisher's trying to do. But that's the main. But I would think it's a better job. Money they both have, but A&M has even more.
But I mean, again, the money's going to be about the same. I mean, because LSU would have to really overbid to make it, and he's already making so much money at A&M. So I just don't think that is, and I think that even though Scott Woodward hired him at A&M, I think that's just not going to happen there. I think they're going to get something new and different there at LSU. And then as Mike Elko should be a head coaching candidate a lot of places. I think TCU and Tech would be silly not to look at him.
All right, 2 more, then a break, and we come back with J.J. Joe. This is from, again, the prodigal heel. I think Patterson is criminally underrated, and then a couple of others who agree. Here's from Christian. If you fail at Texas Tech, you can become a U.S. Senator or an NFL head coach. So it's a landing spot. All right, that's it. With that, also, West Virginia has been so hot and cold this year. How do you think they do it today against Oklahoma State? I think Oklahoma State, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Oklahoma State probably 6 to 10 points in that game. I think their defense will be a problem for West Virginia, but that sure was a great win. Not a great win, but it was, considering a great win for Neil Brown and company against Iowa State. From Christian, can you even roll out Gary Patterson parachuting in on a sweaty towel to relieve Jerry Kill of his duties? When we come back, J.J. Joe played at Baylor, quarterback there, now the color analyst for Baylor Radio, and his thoughts about TCU and what Baylor faces today with an interim coach, the emotions of Gary Patterson out, and also his thoughts about what Dave Aranda and Baylor's done so far with their 7-1 start. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Masters of barbecue, kings of crazy good food, and the perfect sanctuary for sports, beer, and barbecue. It's Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco and also on Highway 84 in McGregor. A menu filled with choices like a great offensive playbook, including 3 meat combos with sides, burgers, and sandwiches, wings, loaded giant spuds, and salads. Crazy wings, chicken poppers, big boy fries, and smoking quesadillas, just some of their amazing appetizers. There's Coach Big Ol' Draft Beer, or order Zach's Spicy Bloody Mary or Coach's margaritas and mimosas while watching your favorite team play. Great pecan smoked barbecue, fun atmosphere with attention to detail, including a catering menu, and we'll quote your price to fit your budget. Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and walking distance to the great places to shop and enjoy, and also the original location on Highway 84 in McGregor. Great food, great price, great fun. Eat where the locals eat.
The 2021 Ram brand just received first place in the prestigious J.D. Power's Initial Quality Study. The Dodge brand finished second to Ram, and the 2021 Jeep Gladiator is first among all midsize trucks. Quality and Ram Power Days, only at Allen Samuels, 201 West Loop 340.
Come by, let's be friends.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Call us on the Bet US hotline, 254-339-1122.
There are some stories in college football about some players who have some off-the-field issues, or at least they need to kind of get through some things and figure out what's happening. Ohio State has suspended their quarterback, Jack Miller, impaired driving arrest, the redshirt freshman. That's that one story. And I mentioned earlier the story about Georgia linebacker, Adam Anderson, attorney for the star linebacker, calling accusations of rape unfounded. And so watch for that story. He's a starting linebacker and very much highly involved when it comes to what he does with sacks and so much more. It just seems like this creeps in. You know, every once in a while, 2 or 3 different teams have something, whether it's that sexual assault or violence or whatever, and it's part of college football. It's part of life. And so we'll see how some of that works out as well. J.J. Joe, former Baylor quarterback, Baylor Radio color analyst, joins us on 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio. You know what? Last week, you said Baylor was going to have to take Texas's best shot, and they were going to try to get deep a couple of times, and they did once. And you hit that right on the nail on the head. But, J.J., what did you think about how Baylor did not panic, did not try to do things out of character, and they just methodically came back to take the lead and win the game?
Smoke, I was really impressed, and thanks for having me on. It's good to be on with you the day before we have to face the Frogs. But I thought Coach Aranda's group did a fantastic job. This team really has taken on his personality. I think Gary is very similar to Coach Aranda in a sense. Just kind of demeanor wise. But I think the team, they just showed they're a veteran team. I think, Smoke, the more we look at it, and I really didn't pay much attention to this, we talked about how experienced the defense was with all the young men coming back. But offensively, if you look at their 2 deep, I mean, they're just full of veteran players who, most of whom were here, maybe didn't play a huge role, but most who were here in 2019 when Baylor went to the conference championship game.
Yeah, I wondered, and I know that what Aranda's done, he gets the credit along with his staff right now, but I wonder how much of that tested, that metal, that whatever you want to call it, that they learned also from 2019. It seems like that's still prevalent.
It really is, because, I mean, you just look at the defense and just a lot of you just seniors and juniors, and then Raleigh's a 6-year guy, and And you just see all of it up and down the roster, and then you look on offense, you start thinking about it. Yes, we got a couple transfers in Grant Miller and Gall, but a lot of young men that are playing quite a bit were here, as Drew Estrada wasn't, I'm sorry. But yeah, they've been tested. They've seen a lot of close games in 19. Last year was a really tough year. And I just think the demeanor of this team is they don't panic. Aranda's the right coach for them. And last Saturday, they put the fear in UT, and you saw it when he went for it on 4th and 11. He knew that if he gave the ball to Baylor, that what was going to happen was going to happen, and that's what happened. So it's good to see these guys play.
As a quarterbacks make mistakes. They also throw picks, and sometimes there's things that don't go well. What was how Gary Bohannon reacted to a couple of bad throws that could have been critical and still kept firing away, and he didn't just go into a shell?
Yeah, I'd really like to see that. I think early in the season, that really would have damaged his psyche a little bit. Not that I'm concerned about how he thinks, but I mean, Gary he's a hard worker. He's a grinder. He's a young man that wants to do his best. He doesn't want to be the reason the team is not successful. A lot of times you can over-process and over-analyze and think you have to be perfect. And I think early on, I think he had a fumble early in the season, I think that messed with him. He really went into a shell in the sense that he didn't want to take any more risk. Well, we saw the growth in just a mere 7 games or however many games later. He threw those 2 picks in the first half, and it was just really a mistake where he stared down his receiver. We got to remember he was only in his 8th game starting. Mm-hmm. So he made those mistakes, but he bounced back, man, didn't panic, and just kept playing.
What is the challenge this week of playing a team that is a wounded animal, which you just did with Texas, going through a coaching transition of someone that they loved, although he maybe did not quite have a fully engaged team so far this year? What are the challenges this week with Patterson, not the head coach at TCU?
Smoke, it's a trap game. It is the quintessential trap game, and it's the perfect trap game for TCU. And I've played in one of these before, and you just played the big UT who were struggling, but that's the big game for Baylor. And then on the back end of this, you got OU coming in, and everybody wants to talk. Not in the coaching staff, not on the team, but all of your friends and everybody wants to get ready for, the OU game. So the players, they're human, they're young. So when they're outside of the facility, they hear it. But the coach has done a great job of trying to focus them. We'll be able to tell on Saturday if they're focused. That has, don't get me wrong. If they're unsuccessful, I don't think it will be because they're unfocused. But we'll be able to see how they play. And I've been there. I've been there. We played, my sophomore year, we were ranked high in the country. We played U of H, which is a big game. We had a Rice game sandwiched between U of H and A&M. And Rice bit us. And Rice was one of those teams that always played us well, no matter how good our record was and how bad theirs was. They always were just a thorn in our side. At TCU, if we're honest, they beat us, in the last 10 years, maybe 8 times.
Yeah, I've said this before throughout this week about Gary Patterson and the decision he was made to not continue. You would think he would have done everything possible, including losing a body part,
right.
a body part to play and coach against Baylor at least one more time and try to knock them off their pedestal.
Hey, if Briles was here, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Oh my Lord. So, do you feel like with the change with Patterson not there, even though he's been a part of some practices this week, with Meacham and what he likes to do on offense, and Duggan, we don't know, and Zach Evans, it doesn't look good with whether he'll play or not. Do they just come out and just say, "What the hell, let's wing it"?
I think so, man. They have 5 losses. They're 3-5. And the one thing I know Jerry wants to do, Coach Keel, he wants to try to get this worm turned, and at least try to see if they can reach for that bowl game. And Smoke, I really think that Meacham had the governor on him with Patterson on the sideline. Patterson is just ultra conservative offensively. He let the reins go at 14 and all that, but I think with the reins being kind of loosened, I'm not sure how the Coach Keel will play it. I think Meacham, with those big receivers on the edge, a veteran quarterback, maybe Chandler Morris plays some. I think and Zach Evans may be out. So Smoke, I expect for this guy, man, I wouldn't be surprised if they threw it 35, 40 times. I just really wouldn't, because they got size advantage. They have a young man out there, I think it's Quentin Johnson from Temple. It's really good.
Yep.
So I expect for them to really try to go after us. When you play our defense, they're hard to run on.
Yeah, and so is this one of those you don't give them anything, a gift? You don't ever want to do that, whether you're going to beat a team 56-6 or a team that might be the wounded animal or a team that you're not favored to beat. Is this one of those where you don't want to give them any glimpse, any kind of freebie? You cannot give them a chance to say, hey, no, we're pretty good here. We have a chance in this one. I know TCU thinks they can win the game and focus to win the game, but is this one of those where you just cannot just throw up on yourself early?
Smoke, I agree, but here's my call. I think early there will be a storm from this team that Baylor probably, it's kind of similar maybe to UT or, kind of coming out of the gate. And Baylor's going to have to hold on. I think, and this is the perfect team because Baylor has been kind of one of those resilient teams. But I think the storm is going to come. These young men will be emboldened. They want to prove that, hey, look, without Coach Patterson or, hey, we're upset that he's gone, whatever the reason, they're going to play and try to play for Coach Kill, and we're going to get everything. And I think what beats this team, TCU, is that you have to, in I would say late second through the middle third, have to show them that they're probably not going to win. So I think if you hold on, Smoke, this is going to be a third quarter game. This game will probably be determined in the third quarter on what Baylor does. If Baylor starts showing momentum and really looking like, okay, we are better, which I really believe Baylor is, TCU will go away. If TCU is hanging at all, say 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes into the third, this will be a one score game. At the end, last possession probably wins.
Well, you're right about trap games. With what they come off the win against the Texas, no matter if they were struggling, and then Oklahoma on the horizon. And, we discuss it. I mean, we look at fans are talking about game day. I think you got to win tomorrow first before anything worries about what happens whatever weekend it is. And if you don't win tomorrow, you can forget about, a lot of things because that can go out the window with a loss, and especially with a team that you should beat if you just take care of your business. Hey, man, thanks for your time, JJ. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Smoke. You have a good one.
JJ Joe, former Baylor quarterback. It's been great to have JJ and Ricky on quite a bit throughout the year to give us their insight, former players at Baylor, and also a part of the broadcast as well.
Masters of barbecue, kings of crazy good food, and the perfect sanctuary for sports, beer, and barbecue is Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco and also on Highway 84 in McGregor. A menu filled with choices like a great offensive playbook, including 3 meat combos with sides, burgers, and sandwiches, wings, loaded giant spuds, and salads, crazy wings, chicken poppers, big boy fries, and smoking quesadillas, just some of their amazing appetizers. There's Coach Big Ol' Draft Beer, or order Zach's Spicy Bloody Mary or Coach's margaritas and mimosas while watching your favorite team play. Great pecan smoked barbecue, fun atmosphere with attention to detail, including a catering menu, and we'll quote your price to fit your budget. Coach's XXX Smoke on Austin Avenue in downtown Waco, and walking distance to the great places to shop and enjoy, and also the original location on Highway 84 in McGregor. Great food, great price, great fun. Eat where the locals eat.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment, and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Back here, and we're about to talk about TCU and what a week it was for them with Gary Patterson. That news coming down over the weekend, and then the fact that he decided not to return and then came back to practice to help the Frogs as they get ready for Baylor. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it one more day because then they play today. He will give up a body part if he could to beat Baylor. That's just, that's the way it is, the intensity. And he has a lot beaten Baylor. I think about the wins since I remember covering Baylor in 2010 on. You had the tipped interception in the end zone that sealed the game against Casey Paha that Terrell Burt had. You had 4 overtime win. You had the 61-58. And then you had the one game. There was one more game where it was Mike Hicks in 2011 who had to pick off a pass at the end of the game, and that one got a little dicey. And Aaron Jones had to kick a 40-something-yard field goal, Stork, to win that game, RG3's Heisman Trophy year. That could have, who knows what happens if they drop that one. So there's never been a Baylor win other than, basically the last play of the game, or at least in the last seconds of the game. That's something to think about as well.
Yeah, they've never beaten a Gary Patterson coach team going away.
No, they haven't.
They've had games where he absolutely at every turn had an answer for everything they did. Look, a couple years ago, the game that Jalen Reagor made two offensive good plays. One. One was a punt return. One was a
reverse.
And one was a reverse. And that was the difference in that game. And TCU called a masterful defensive game plan. But, they don't have that mojo right now. They don't. Baylor has no business losing this game. Baylor has no business letting TCU in this game, honestly, the way that both of them have been playing. But, again, look, Gary Patterson's showing up at practice to help him out after he got fired, so shows how much it means to him.
From our web, by the way, and a couple of conversations from the first part of the show, to Paul Catalina, LSU has first pick on Louisiana talent, whereas A&M doesn't have that even on Texas. Thus, LSU's a better job. And plus, I mentioned that they have won national titles in recent years, a lot of them. Bo Stacker, our quarterback, had all day to throw last week, but he will probably be pressured a lot. If the offensive line holds up, we'll have a chance. I think he's discussing West Virginia as well. And then Joey responded on LSU. I see your point, but A&M gets their fair share of talent, and, of course, they go through surges with that. Jimbo should be doing more with it than he is right now. In my opinion, I think this will hold him out of some jobs like LSU.
I wrote back. I think I disagree with that on Jimbo just a little bit. I think that if you look at his track at FSU and his track at A&M, this was the year at FSU where they won the national title in his year of coaching. But he has the same kind of talent coming in where he's got NFL guys coming in. He's going to have – A&M's going to have a ton of guys in the next couple of NFL drafts. That's the kind of talent you need to win in the SEC. He's getting that. The difference is that he had it at FSU, and he also had a guy named Jameis Winston, who's a generational talent at quarterback. They don't have that at A&M right now, and that's, I think, the biggest difference between where he was. So he was tracking on the same way that he was at FSU that he is at A&M right now. So I don't think he's doing less with his talent. He just doesn't have the generational guy who's going to make it all stick together. That defense is fantastic. It's one of the best in the country, and it's got players all up and down it that they're talented and living up to their expectations. They didn't lose those 2 games this year because of their defense. They lost them because of their offense. So, and that's because he doesn't have a generational talent.
Mississippi State did kind of toy them a little bit with that Mike Leach, but you're right. The game we know, and of course they had the win against Colorado that absolutely could have been right off the top, them throwing up on themselves, but they did win that game. This from Christian. This has to be the worst TCU team Baylor has played since the 90s, though, through the scheme of things. Am I right? I think you're right. I do believe you're right, because I can only go back to 2010 when TCU had that unbeaten team, went to the Rose Bowl, and they smoked Baylor up in Fort Worth. And then ever since that time, they've beaten Baylor up a couple of different times. And they've also won some games when they weren't better. Including 2019. They weren't better. 2018, excuse me. They weren't better. They came in injured, then their quarterback got hurt early. So that's Gary Patterson. He used to do the same thing and toy with Texas or annoy Texas quite a bit as well. So that's that. Now, earlier this week on Tuesday, Drew Davidson writes for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, covers TCU football on the aftermath of Gary Patterson, no longer the head coach, but Patterson back to coach, and TCU getting ready for Baylor.
Welcome back in Sikkim 365 Radio. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, Armstrong, Jack Hayden are here. Our buddy Lance Aldridge is here in studio. Great to see him. And we are joined now by Drew Davidson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Drew, you've had an interesting week. I mean, I think the writing was starting to get on the wall for Gary Patterson, maybe a change just based on everything's gone the last few years, but it got accelerated over the last couple of weeks. Were you shocked at how fast that happened?
Oh, absolutely, Paul. I mean, when Texas Tech fired Matt Wells, I guess 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, that's when I got the first kind of hint that, hey, TCU might be willing to part ways with Gary. Emphasis on might. I certainly never thought it would be during the season. I thought it would come after the season. So yeah, certainly, it was interesting how quickly it happened, but I think it probably started with the Oklahoma game. You just obviously they got off to a slow start, losing to SMU and Texas, and then Oklahoma, smoked them pretty good, and you could just tell the gap between the top of the league, OU, and TCU had grown pretty significant, and then just a couple disappointing games against West Virginia and last week at K-State. But again, I never thought Gary Patterson would have a mid-season departure.
So Jeremiah Donati was speaking just a little while ago, I believe, Drew, and commenting on the search that will now get underway, and he also denied one of the rumors, I guess, that was surrounding kind of how everything unfolded. What was his kind of perspective on the offer they apparently made for him to finish out the season, him turning that down, and that whole part of the story? Where was Donati on how that unfolded?
Yeah, well, so the thing he really wanted to clarify was there was no ultimatum for Gary Patterson. Once the decision had been made, it wasn't like they went to Gary and said, hey, if you fire this coach or if you do this, X, Y, Z, you'll be back. The decision had kind of been made that, hey, it's time to move on. As painful and tough as it is, we've had a great run, but time, to kind of bring in someone else to run the program. And, they obviously hoped that Gary would stick around and, kind of have a farewell send-off, so to speak. But, as you all know, just, being in the Big 12 and whatnot, Gary Patterson's not the most sentimental guy. I thought that, that plan probably had low probability of success of convincing Gary to stick around as a lame duck coach, and ultimately, he decided to move on. Which, once someone doesn't want you, I understand his thought process there.
Yeah, I could not foresee him waxing on about, what a great last 4 weeks this has been to be with the guy. It's just not his style at all. I couldn't have seen that. Drew, how much of I don't want to say, there's kind of maybe added antics from Gary this year. There's always been something where he, goes off on a tangent about this or that, or he kind of gets one thing in his sights, and that's kind of a repeated theme. But this year it was just kind of everything. Every time there was something, there was kind of something. How much of that was Gary feeling the pressure for the first time in a long time at TCU?
Yeah, I think so. And some of the rants that, were just head scratching, going after the TCU alum who, had less than 100 followers on his website, and things like that, and the SMU, just kind of really ripping them for the flag planting and whatnot. I mean, when you're winning 10, 11 games, I think, those are obviously more with an eye roll or whatnot. But, I think some of those, as I was talking to someone, they kind of mentioned those are just added unnecessary data points that Gary kind of just kept putting on. The West Virginia loss is another data point, but some of those rants during the press conferences were just other things that just kind of added to the list. But at the end of the day, I mean, it came down to wins and losses, and since 2018, TCU is the game under 500, and they just felt it was time to find a new voice, so to speak.
So, Drew, where are we with Zach Evans? I know there's been various reports about whether his locker was cleaned out at one point, and obviously there's a lot of curiosity from outsiders when they saw he wasn't playing last Saturday, although that was due to injury. But, obviously he's going to be a name that people start to debate about, and I'm sure there will be others. Can you get any kind of a sense yet on sort of where the TCU players are mindset-wise with the changeover to now Jerry Kill?
Yeah, I mean, they say Jerry Kill is, or Jerry Kill, has, from what he talked today, has good buy-in and whatnot. But I think, Jeremiah Donati acknowledged it, and Jerry Kill kind of did too. They're trying to play for the players. It's kind of hey, let's rally and win one for Coach T and whatnot. But the reality is, with any coaching change, recruits are probably going to reopen the recruitments, and players are probably going to, explore this, what's out there in the transfer portal and whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, I think obviously all the stars, Max Duggan, Zach Evans, Quentin Johnston, you name it, all those guys, I'm sure, are kind of intrigued to see where this coaching search goes. And it wouldn't be a surprise if any of them hit the portal.
Drew, I know that did he leave a game plan? Is that maybe a fair way to put it for his coaches, or discuss it? You wrote about that today, that there's not many schools that get his goat like Baylor does, and that he enjoys beating, especially maybe when they're a little bit higher ranked than his team is and ruining their season. Did he leave him a game plan and kind of go over it? What was that happened this week with Gary before he left and turned things over to Jerry Kill?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things. There's kind of multiple layers to it, right, Paul? I mean, number one, I think it kind of, shuts down the narrative that he quote unquote quit on the team with 4 games left. I mean, he still cares about his guys. He wants them to have success. The reason he walked away was the administration didn't want him after the season, right? It wasn't about the team or his assistants by any stretch. So, it kind of sent that message in my mind, and it also, his fingerprints are still all over this program and this team, and he wants his guys to be successful, and he doesn't want Baylor to go, win 65-14 or whatever. He's hoping that they're competitive, and it's a reflection on kind of the guy, his staff, and the players he brought in. So he had kind of already started on the game plan against Baylor, and met with some of his assistants to kind of go over what he was going to implement and think and install for this week. So, but I also think it just, he's a ball coach, and that's what ball coaches do, right?
Yeah, it is. Drew, I saw where Donati also mentioned.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
For a limited time, refinance your vehicle and have 90 days with 0 payments. Only at Genco FCU. Refinancing lowers your rate and you pay less for your car. You can't pass on rates as low as 1.75% for 48 months. Apply online today.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. Go to GencoFCU.org. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube.
Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach, with me on Sikkim 365 Radio. What are the challenges the week before when you have to face an interim head coach?
I think it is focus of your team. I think it's number one, and then I think number two, it would be what unknowns are you seeing? Do things kind of get simplified and reduced, or do things get do things explode and go out? And so I think there's still work to do on that phase of it. I would think that things come in and get simplified, but I think the most important is the piece that we can control, and that's just our motivation, our focus, and it's really no different than what it's been throughout our entire process. And it's keeping it on, making our standard daily, a real strong expectation.
You know Jerry Kill. You coached against him when you were at Wisconsin, and you know of him as well. Does that help a little bit or not?
Yeah, it does. I think he is simple. I think he is basic and fundamental. I think he's a ball coach. And so I think, my anticipation with that would be that they're going to try to do simple better. But, I think for us, that is going to be kind of our through our coordinator's vein of along with my help, but really kind of making it so we can focus with our players as much on the outside in terms of their technique and their schemes as with the inside, and that's their motivation and their focus and then kind of their internal drive.
Your thoughts about what you said about Gary Patterson in the media session? Defense, respect from you because of what he's done, and it's kind of like almost how much you respect what he is as a defensive mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just coming up with him. So when I was kind of coming up, Gary Patterson. That's when he first started to be the guy, and I think the way that he looked at defense, or he started to look at defense then, and it became more fashionable after him. He was really one of the first. Was to look at defense as you would be on offense, as calling a defense, call out the front, call out the linebackers, call out the secondary, and each in the call give them a job description where they're not necessarily tied to each other, right? By the call, it's all individually pieced like a sentence, where they can go out and really create havoc and be way multiple. And I think at that time that was something you would, like, if we were to go on Google right now, we could type up West Coast offensive play names, right, and pull up some long play names where they describe what everybody's doing on everything. And Gary was the first on defense that was really doing that in college at a real high level. And so I think that thing just took off. And then just from there, just his techniques of playing three backs, and playing spread sets, and playing no huddle, and just all of it, just way forward thinker.
I'm one of those that remembers things that I'm not trying, but I saw one day you had your book open, your calendar. You have the tiniest handwriting, but it's the neatest from top to bottom of every day. How methodical are you with that?
Pretty strong. I think that's probably the only part of my life that I can control. That book right there, and so I take some pride in that. But I think like a lot of that comes from the early morning, which is one of my favorite times because you go through kind of I think every day, every morning, you've got yourself a new team, and so it gives me the ability to kind of where people's hearts are at, or what happened yesterday, and how I can help, or am I getting in the way, or which player needs to be seen, what needs to be said, right? Where are we falling below the standard, below the line? we need to recognize someone because they're way achieving high and they're doing it in the dark, and we need to give them some light. And so I think like all of those things happen in the morning with that schedule. And I think without having that time, you would not be as intentional as you could.
People who know me, I have a reminder to remind myself of a sticky note that might remind me of an alarm that goes off in my phone. It's kind of like a cross-check just to make sure. Hidden yardage. Both teams did a great job with special teams because both dynamic returners. But Rauschenberg with the constant touchbacks. Isaac, when he punted. The coverage teams. How proud are you right now? Hankins, the story out of nowhere. How proud are you of what they're doing as a group?
Really strong. I think they're, I give Coach Powledge a lot of credit. I think there is really, really strong buy-in to special teams and how they influence a game and playing complementary football. And so I think, the ability to contribute on that squad, not only from guys that maybe are not seeing a lot of time and want to get on the field, but guys that are starters and guys that are seeing a lot of time but want to be on this unit because it's going to help the team. I think like there's complete buy-in from all sides of it, and I think when you have that, and then I think with Powell, the ability to keep it simple, the ability to put playmakers in the best position to succeed and stress fundamentals, good things happen.
What does it say about you and your staff, though? You found Hankins out of nowhere, basically, I think Arkansas, and what he's done. And then also when you made the decision to look for a running back for the offense and the Abram Smith story with, Joey McGuire played against him and Coach Wetzel knew of him and so did others. What does that say that you guys have been able to find those diamonds and what they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's more, it's the guys, and I think it's seeing people first. I think it's, I think it is, it's as a coach, just not getting in the way of not getting an ego to where it becomes, if you're in a thing, it becomes now another thing. It's putting all that you have into them as people so that they feel like, I can believe in myself, or, I can give everything I got and ain't no one going to come at me like this or that. I think when there is that type of environment, and that's players and coaches both, right, where it's like the team is first, then I think you can really have a lot of growth. And I think we're still in the process of that. You mentioned when the interceptions were brought up about playing green or playing yellow. What were you saying? Yeah, so the stoplight. So I think there's a fair amount of, I look at it just in life, I think like green would be your authentic self, man, like totally, like not trying to be somebody you're not trying to perform or act your way through a thing, just really feeling confident about who you are, and you bring your identity into every room you go, as opposed to going into a room and taking the identity of every room that you walk into, and that would be playing green. I think on the football field that would be, playing full speed, right? No, courage over any form of comfort where I'm kind of holding back, right? Putting yourself out there. Yellow would be, if it's life, it would be, I got this job because it pays some money, and I don't necessarily like the people here, and I'm kind of doing it just to get by. I'm gonna get another job, or I'm every morning I got to put on this face and be this for someone, and I don't even know. And yellow in football would be, I don't really know. I think I'm supposed to do this. I'm gonna try it. I'm kind of halfway in, halfway out. Right? When times get tough, I kind of make it up. Right? So yellow is kind of pumping the brakes, seeing if it's safe. Can you be you? Can you not? And red would be palms up. Red would be transfer portal, fisticuffs. It would be blow ups. It would be breakups.
Speaking of that, and I think it was amazing, you brought this up. This is a picture of the Berenstain Bears books, and you brought this up.
It's a bad decision.
No, it was fantastic.
Really
Old
bad
hat, new hat, when you're talking about things you're comfortable with or things you're trying to find. First of all, I think the book sales exploded over the weekend. I had to ask you about that. That's just that. For someone like me,
Yeah.
You didn't like you didn't like that?
No, I think it
made sense.
Yeah, it's something I've always been able to look at. I've always seen how stuff connects, and so I remember that book, and I just feel like I remember as a coordinator, I loved the old hat, and so there'd be but you would have to. It wasn't so much the new hat you were getting. There would be times you would get the new hat. It was more about the Bernstein Bears search. That's really what it is. And if you're true to that, and you ask the right questions, and you go through the search the right way, and you get to the old hat, then that's where it's supposed to be. If you're true to the search, and you ask the right questions, and you're honest with yourself, right, and you take input from other parties, other people that are in the room with you, and that leads you to a new hat, then so be it. But I think you have to recognize that the search is important and spend time doing that. And I think sometimes, so that's the focus on the process again.
Mm-hmm.
I think so many people focus on where they're, what they're trying to get to, and they miss it.
I thought it was brilliant. I did. Speaking of searches, you had brought up a couple of weeks ago, the question was asked about your name out there, and Joey's name today, and then Gary Patterson, and now what they're doing. Are agents involved in telling coaches what they can say? Like Mike Tomlin, I don't know if you saw what he said. He said, never say never, but never. He was very angry about his name coming up. He's coaching the Steelers. They've had 3 coaches in forever. Mm-hmm. Is that something that is, how is that you, because you gave an answer that you love it here at Baylor. Grant Tapp told me today that you are a perfect fit for Baylor and that you're not one that's going to be looking around. Mm-hmm. How do coaches go about having to answer that? And does it get to be the kind of tiresome?
No, I think I think it is part and parcel. I think whether, either way, if you're losing, there's going to be stuff, and if you're winning, there's going to be stuff. And so, I think, you'd rather have this stuff, I guess. But, for me, like, the opportunity to grow as a person is really, I think I said it last week. I talk more now in a day than I probably did in a week at LSU, and that's that's kind of embarrassing to say, but that's the truth. And so I think like the growth, and I think what Baylor provides is seeing people, spiritual growth, value in who you are as a person, and interpersonal relationships, treat people the right way, class, integrity, and those are all things that just like what Coach Taft was saying, they fit with how I believe. And so I think it's a growth in that space. I think for almost becoming a machine at LSU, for example, just as an assistant coach with just football, and then I think you and I have talked before about the stresses. Mm-hmm. And how that can push you to extremes. And I think, I remember when we were recruiting Apu, he wanted to get on the phone with me, and I wanted to get on the phone with him, and we were talking, and I could tell there was some kind of awkwardness on the phone. And I go, you're probably wondering what it's like with me as a head coach. And he goes, yeah, man, I don't even know. So I said, I appreciate that, man. I can see why, Mm-hmm. And so we talked about all that, and I think it's just like the growth. I think so. The growth as a person, that's the thing. I think the stuff as a coach, I think, is all just that's just a byproduct of it. So I think like the more, I don't know. People would probably call them soft skills, but those soft skills do hard things, way hard things. And I think the better you are with those skills, like empathy, right, being transparent, selflessness, communication, like listening to understand, all of those things I think have been way strong for me here. And those things I've always believed there or wherever I've been, but have always just never grown. And so I think the growth is over everything.
And so you love it here, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you ever talk to Coach Taff about being the next Grant Taft, like what he meant to this school?
Yeah, I couldn't even think like that. That'd be crazy. But I know like Coach Taff was just more than football. He was just so what he meant as a mentor, what he meant, as a father, what he meant as a leader. And now that I'm here at Baylor, I can see, so much of that was him, but I could see the support, and I can see the outside influences that can make something like that happen, because it's special.
One final thing, your record's 9-8. Remember when I asked you last year, did you ever think about it's your name with 2-7 or what was 1 and whatever it was? Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of bigger goals ahead of you, but 9-8. That's your record now, and it used to be a big hole that you were under.
Yeah. I think never really look at the record. Mm-hmm. I think looking at the routine, the different team that you have basically every day, and trying to be real with what's real. I think like those are the things. Whereas I think like last year, finding a lot out about myself, finding a lot about our players more or less every day, and not having the expectations a lot of times set to where I know enough about me so that I could say this about you, right? And so there is a space where, hey man, I'm going to love you, but to do that, this is where this has to be, where I can still love myself. I think so much of that was the story of last year, and I think, coming to grips really with who I am, and then knowing our players, and for them to really see me, I think has allowed, right, a daily process that where guys can just be themselves, man, and kind of give to the team. And I think, through all that, man, that record can go here or there, but you feel fulfilled though, right? Because you feel like, this is where I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and your heart feels good. So from there, everything is good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. Dave Aranda, Baylor football coach on Sikkim 365 Radio. All right, that's Dave Aranda from earlier this week. Baylor and TCU about to kick off in just over a half an hour. Craig Smoke joins us for this final segment. I know, Craig, you think this will be and should be a blowout. Thanks for joining us. Hope you've had a good couple of days. Your thoughts about today in TCU?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it's been good to rest up a little bit. But, I saw the news earlier about Chandler Morris getting the start, which we kind of touched on being potentially, an option for TCU, and the fact Zach Evans well. I thought even if those guys played, that this was still a game that I felt like Baylor should win big because of just the way the two teams have played this year. With that injury news, I'm going to stick with my 20-point type win prediction. But I think I said, something along the lines of like 42-20, something there. And I think I'm going to stick with that. I feel good about Baylor in this game so long as they play their game. If they don't, they don't. But if they do, then I think they win this game comfortably.
So your thoughts about Baylor, your thoughts about Baylor, and offensively, is this a game where they're pretty multiple, where they can run it and throw it evenly, 200 yards, something like that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the only team they haven't been able to be really a dual threat against is Oklahoma State, because they just didn't operate well offensively. Some of that was Oklahoma State's defense. I think some of that was also Baylor's offense. And you heard them allude earlier this week to TJ Franklin's comments and how that game kind of woke them up, and you see how balanced they've been since then. I expect them to be extremely balanced today. TCU doesn't have the type of defense that just shuts people down like it used to. Their offensive line is a little bit of an issue as well, and now you've got some missing pieces on offense, and we know what the Baylor defense can do. So, yeah, the Baylor offense in particular, I think they're going to be able to move the football. I think they're going to have to, probably be creative on a couple of occasions, but I'm sure Gary Patterson will have the guys ready, but matchup for matchup, I just think Baylor's the better team, so I expect them to score some points. And defensively, I expect them to give a little, but I think ultimately there's not really a guy on TCU's offense that I'm super concerned about. I mean, if they had given up big yardage to Bijan and every running back they faced, then maybe I'd be worried about a Zach Evans today, but I'm not as worried about a Kendrick Miller. Maybe if they had given up, big, huge plays over and over again to proven quarterbacks, that'd be one thing, but they played relatively well. And, Chandler Morris is inexperienced, so I think he'll be a wild card, but, I like the Bears in this game. I like them a lot.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it. Enjoy the afternoon and the rest of the weekend. Craig Smoke with us, Sick and 365. Paul, I said 30-17 Baylor.
Yeah, I think I said 38-20 or 38-17, something like that. I think Baylor wins this handily.
Armstrong, you say the same thing. You want to give us your quick little feedback on this game? Again, 2:30 kickoff, Baylor and TCU.
Yeah, I got Baylor in a rout. Like 45-24.
All right. Thank you, man. Armstrong, thanks to Craig Smoke. Thanks to all of our guests today. Thanks to you who watched on the chat room. And we're a part of that as well. For Paul Catalina, Armstrong, Sims, and Craig Smoke, and our sponsors, thanks to Coach's XXX Barbecue, our sponsor of the pre- and post-game show. Paul's back here in the studio with the post-game show after whatever happens in Fort Worth. I'm David Smoke. Have a great afternoon. Have a great weekend. Sick and 365 Radio and 365 Sports.